The kitchen, with its sunlit tiles and aroma of stew simmering, felt far less inviting than it used to. I could feel the weight of Mark's stare as he scanned the room, looking for something to criticize. "You've made the same stew again, Anna?" Mark remarked, a hint of disdain in his voice. "It's your favorite, Mark. I thought..." "You thought wrong, like always." He cut me off, his voice rising. "Every day it's the same thing. I come home after a long day, hoping for something different, something better. But all I get is this monotony." I bit back a retort, looking down to hide the hurt in my eyes. "And what have you done all day, Anna?" He prodded further. "Sitting around, chatting with your friends on the phone, I bet. You're just a sponger, Anna." I felt my face flush with embarrassment and anger. Before I could respond, Sarah entered the kitchen. The hope I harbored, that she'd be my ally in these moments, quickly vanished when she spoke. "Honestly, Mom, why don't you try something new for a change? Or better yet, why don't you do something useful for once?" she snapped, grabbing an apple from the fruit bowl and taking a bite with an exaggerated crunch. I tried to remain calm, holding back tears. I thought making something familiar would be comforting. "I'm sorry if it wasn't to your liking." Sarah scoffed, looking eerily similar to her father in that moment. "It's not about the food, Mom. It's about how you just exist in this house, like a piece of furniture." Feeling cornered and overwhelmed, I mustered up the little dignity I had left. "I've always done my best for this family. Maybe one day you'll see that." Mark chuckled darkly. "Oh, Anna, always playing the victim. You know, maybe if you had a father growing up, you'd know how to be a better wife and mother." I gasped, shocked at his cruel words. The sting of his remark hit deep, reminding me of the father-shaped void in my life. Sarah, echoing her father's sentiment, added, "Maybe then you'd be less of a burden." Feeling the weight of their combined disdain, I took a deep breath. "I'll be in my room. Dinner's ready whenever you want it," I said quietly, leaving the kitchen and praying for the strength to endure another day in this crumbling facade of a family. Days turned into weeks, and the atmosphere at home remained tense. Sarah was out more often than not, and when she was home, she spent most of her time locked in her room. Mark, on the other hand, became increasingly distant, coming home late from work and sometimes not at all. One day, as I was heading to the local market, I saw something that stopped me in my tracks. Just around the corner from our home, there was Mark, laughing and talking with a younger woman. They seemed close, too close. Their body language spoke volumes. I watched, hidden behind a tree, as they shared a tender kiss. The air felt heavy, and my heart raced. This was my husband, the man I had given my life to, and here he was, betraying our vows. The weight of this realization made my knees weak, and I quickly turned and headed home, my mind racing. As soon as I entered the house, I was met with Sarah's cold stare. "Where were you?" "Took you long enough," she commented snidely. "I saw your father," I replied, trying to maintain my composure. "Oh, with his secretary. I've known for months. But who cares? At least he's happy." She shrugged, revealing her knowledge of the affair with such nonchalance that it felt like another blow. I felt numb. My own daughter knew and didn't care. "Sarah, how could you hide this from me?" She rolled her eyes. "Because it's none of my business, or yours for that matter. Maybe if you were more interesting or tried harder, he wouldn't need someone else." The pain of her words was sharp, but I was determined not to let her see me crumble. "Your father and I are going to have a talk when he gets home." She smirked. "Good luck with that." Hours seemed to drag by. When Mark finally walked through the door, he looked surprised to see me waiting for him. "Anna, what's this all about?" "Who is she, Mark?" I demanded. He hesitated, looking momentarily caught off guard, then sighed. I was going to tell you, Anna. It wasn't the right time. So there's a right time to tell your wife you're cheating on her? My voice cracked despite my best efforts to sound strong. Mark rubbed his temples. Look, Anna, things haven't been great between us for a long time. She makes me feel alive again. I felt like I was being torn apart. And what about me, Mark? What about our marriage? Our family? It's not just about you, Anna, he shouted back. It's about me and what I want. Maybe if you'd been more supportive or understanding, things would be different. The weight of everything crashed down on me. The loveless marriage, the estrangement from my daughter, and now, the final blow, Mark's betrayal. But I wouldn't let them see me broken. I've done nothing but support this family, I whispered, feeling tears sting my eyes. But I won't be your doormat any longer, Mark. I want a divorce. His face paled. You can't be serious. Watch me, I replied, gathering a newfound strength from deep within. The atmosphere was thick with tension. Mark looked at me, truly seeing me for the first time in what felt like years. He didn't say anything more. He just turned and went to our room. I looked around the house where I had spent the best years of my life, and realized that it wasn't my home anymore. The final straw had been drawn. It was time for a change. Moving into my mother's old house wasn't easy. The memories of her surrounded me, and sometimes I felt her presence so vividly it was as though she was still with me. I would hear her laughter in the creaks of the wooden floors, or see her reflection in the old mirrors. However, over time, the pain of her absence became a comforting presence. I slowly began to fill the rooms with my own energy and found solace in the home I had once shared with her. One afternoon, as I was cleaning the attic, dusting off old memories and tidying away the remnants of the past, there was a knock at the door. A firm, steady knock that seemed out of place in my quiet world. I hurried downstairs and opened the door. Standing there was an elderly man, dressed in a finely tailored suit, looking a little out of place amidst the simplicity of the neighborhood. "Can I help you?" I asked, a bit puzzled. The man cleared his throat. "Are you Anna?" I nodded. "Yes, I am. Who are you?" He took a deep breath. "I'm Richard. I knew your mother. We were close once." I looked him up and down, searching my memories for any mention of a Richard. Nothing came up. "I'm sorry, but I don't recall my mother mentioning a Richard." He looked pained but nodded. "She wouldn't have. Our parting was not amicable. I'm actually your father, Anna." The world around me seemed to blur, and I stumbled back a step. "What? That's impossible. My mother would have told me." Richard's eyes softened, filled with a mixture of pain and regret. "She had her reasons, Anna. I wish she had told you, but she chose to keep it from both of us." I felt a rush of anger. "And why should I believe you?" Richard sighed and reached into his coat pocket, pulling out an old photograph. It was a picture of a young couple, very much in love. The woman was unmistakably my mother, and beside her was a younger Richard. They looked happy, their smiles genuine. "I kept this with me all these years," he whispered, handing it to me. The photograph felt heavy in my hands. Why now? Why come here after all these years? Richard looked down, a tear escaping his eye. "When I learned about your mother's passing, I started looking for you. I wanted to know my daughter." I leaned against the doorframe, feeling overwhelmed. "This is a lot to take in." He nodded. "I know, and I'm sorry for dropping this on you so suddenly. I wanted to meet you, get to know you." I looked into his eyes, searching for sincerity. They were the same shade as mine, a fact that didn't escape me. After what felt like hours, I nodded slowly. "Okay, come in." Richard smiled, relief evident on his face. "Thank you, Anna." As we sat in the living room sipping tea, Richard told me stories of his time with my mother, how they had met, the adventures they had shared, and the love they had felt. It was a bittersweet experience, hearing about the life my mother had before me. But with every word, the reality of Richard's claims solidified. By the end of the evening, as the sun set, casting a golden hue over the room, I felt a connection with Richard. He was a part of my history, a missing piece in the puzzle of my life. As he left, Richard turned to me, his eyes filled with hope. "Can we meet again?" I nodded. "Yes, I think we can." The door closed behind him, but a new chapter in my life had just begun. The days that followed were a whirlwind of emotions. I'd wake up in the mornings, sometimes thinking it was all a dream. The father I'd never known was now suddenly a part of my life, and each day brought new revelations. Richard would visit often, sharing tales of his family, of the world he came from, a world of affluence and privilege. I learned that he was a successful businessman, having built a vast empire over the years. Despite all his success, he often mentioned a void, a piece of him that always felt missing. One day, as we sat on the porch sipping on lemonade, Richard turned to me, a contemplative look in his eyes. "Anna," he began, "there's something I've been thinking about. I want to meet Sarah, my granddaughter." I hesitated. Sarah hadn't been in touch since I left, and the thought of reconnecting with her felt daunting. "Richard, I don't know. She's changed, and our relationship is strained." He placed a reassuring hand on mine. "I understand, but I want to at least try, for both of us." I took a deep breath. "Okay, but we should plan it out. It won't be easy." Richard's eyes twinkled with mischief. "How about a little act? I've got an idea." Intrigued, I leaned in closer as he whispered his plan. The next day, Richard showed up at my doorstep in a battered old truck, wearing a shabby suit that looked like it had seen better days. I tried to stifle a giggle as he struck a pose. "Well, what do you think? Convincing?" I laughed. "Very. But what's with the truck?" He grinned. "Part of the plan. I thought it would be fun to show up as a poor, old truck driver, finally reuniting with his long-lost daughter." I nodded in agreement. "It's perfect. Let's do this." We drove to my old home, the place I had shared with Mark and Sarah. As we pulled up, I could see Sarah through the window, lounging on the couch. My heart raced. Richard gave my hand a reassuring squeeze. "You ready?" he asked. Taking a deep breath, I nodded, as I'll ever be. We walked up to the door, and I knocked. It swung open to reveal a surprised Sarah. "Mom, what are you doing here?" she asked, her eyes darting to Richard. I took a deep breath. "Sarah, this is Richard. He's my father, your grandfather." She looked him up and down, skepticism clear on her face. "Really? What's with the getup?" Richard chuckled. "Ah, young one. I wanted to see my family, and this old truck is all I've got." Sarah scoffed. "Typical. Well, if you were rich, maybe I'd consider calling you Grandpa." I felt a sting at her words, but Richard just smiled, playing along. "Oh, I wish I had more to offer, but all I have is love and some old stories." Mark then appeared, his gaze shifting between me and Richard. "What's this about?" he grumbled. Before I could reply, Richard stepped forward, extending a hand. "Hello, son-in-law. I'm Anna's father. Just thought I'd come by and see the family." Mark looked at the outstretched hand with disdain. "We don't need more freeloaders." I felt anger rising, but Richard gave me a calming look. "It's all right, Anna. We tried." Sarah, seeing an opportunity, smirked. "Yeah, Mom. Why don't you two go back to where you came from?" Tears welled up in my eyes. "All right, Sarah, we'll leave." As we walked away, Richard whispered, "Don't worry, it's all part of the plan." Weeks after moving into the mansion with Richard, the doors of the grand home swung open to Mark and Sarah, who seemingly showed up out of the blue. The transformation of the mansion's interior was astonishing. Lavish furnishings, pristine marble floors, and artwork that told stories of eras gone by. But the most significant change was in me. The once broken, downtrodden Anna had been replaced by a woman of grace and confidence. Sarah was the first to speak, her voice quivering with a mix of awe and desperation. "Mom, look at this place! Think of what you can do for me now, for my future!" Mark, ever the manipulator, tried a softer approach. "Anna," he said, placing a hand on my arm. I recoiled instantly. "For old times' sake and for Sarah, can't we just put everything behind us?" I looked into the eyes of the man I once loved, searching for a hint of sincerity. Instead, all I saw was greed. "Mark, your words might have swayed me once, but not anymore." Sarah, however, wasn't ready to give up. "All these years, you were just a burden, living off Dad. Now that you have this," she waved around, "you owe us, especially me." Mark chimed in, attempting to pacify the situation. "Sarah, let's not—" But she cut him off, her voice rising with every word. "No, Dad, she's been freeloading all her life. Now she needs to pay it back." My heart ached seeing the venom in my daughter's eyes, the daughter I raised with love and care. "Sarah, I always wanted the best for you, but this isn't the way." Richard, witnessing the entire scene, stepped forward, his presence commanding attention. "Anna is my daughter, and this is her home now. She owes nothing to anyone." Mark, sensing he was fighting a losing battle, tried to save face. "Anna, think about it. For Sarah's sake, we can start over." Sarah scoffed. "Start over? I just want what's owed to me." I took a deep breath. "This mansion, this wealth, it's not a ticket for redemption, Mark. And Sarah, it's not a bank for your entitlement. You both made choices, and now you'll have to live with them." Mark nodded, the weight of defeat evident in his posture. Sarah, on the other hand, was seething. "This isn't over, Mom," she hissed, storming out of the mansion with Mark trailing behind. And as the grand doors closed behind them, I realized that even amidst all this luxury, the most valuable thing I had gained was the strength to stand up for myself. The nights after Mark and Sarah's visit were restless ones. Despite the soft, plush bed and the quiet stillness of the mansion, my mind kept revisiting our confrontation. The hurtful words, the raw emotions, everything played on a loop. It was on one such night that Richard knocked gently on my door. "Anna," he began hesitantly, "there's something I've been meaning to share." I sat up, sensing the gravity of the conversation ahead. "Go on," I murmured, signaling for him to sit beside me. Richard took a deep breath. "When your mother told me about you, she didn't just reveal your existence. She told me about Mark and how he treated you." I looked at him, a little taken aback. "Why didn't you say something before?" He sighed. "I wanted to, but your mother made me promise not to intervene. She believed that you needed to find your own path, your own strength." A wave of memories flooded over me. All the times I had felt isolated and trapped in my marriage, wanting an escape. I whispered, "It was so hard, Dad." Richard placed a comforting hand over mine. "I know, Anna, and it hurt me every day to stay away, knowing what you were going through." The room grew silent for a few moments, filled only with the weight of our shared pain. It was Richard who broke the silence. "Your mother told me something else too." I turned to look at him, curious. "What?" "About Sarah, how she was growing distant from you, taking after Mark." My eyes welled up at the mention of my daughter. She used to be my little girl, always clinging to me. I don't know when and how it all changed. Richard sighed deeply. "Anna, children sometimes get influenced by the environment they grow up in, but you tried your best. You can't blame yourself for how Sarah turned out." "But she's my daughter," I whispered, tears streaming down my face. "And she still is." Richard said firmly, wiping away my tears. But sometimes, Anna, we have to let our children make their own mistakes, learn their own lessons. The conversation with Richard was an eye-opener. It wasn't just about Sarah, but about me. For years, I'd believed that my self-worth was tied to my relationship with Mark and Sarah. That night, with Richard's words echoing in my ears, I realized that my journey, my story, was about finding my own self-worth. The sun was bright, casting a warm, golden hue over everything. I woke up feeling lighter, like a weight had been lifted. Today was special. I was reopening the community center in my town, turning it into a haven for people who needed guidance and support. Richard was already there when I arrived, overseeing the last-minute preparations. "Anna," he greeted, extending a hand. "You look radiant today." I smiled. "Thank you, Richard. Today feels right, doesn't it?" He nodded, looking around the bustling hall. "A fresh start for many." "The community needs this," I replied. "A place of hope." As we cut the ribbon and welcomed the first batch of visitors, the sense of fulfillment was overwhelming. Youngsters seeking guidance, women looking for a fresh start after facing personal challenges, and even elderly folks seeking companionship. The community center was soon buzzing with activity. Richard, seeing my contented expression, whispered, "Proud of you, Anna." As days turned into weeks, the center became the heart of the community. Richard hosted personal development sessions, and I organized workshops, sharing my story, hoping it would inspire others to find their strength. One evening, as the sun set, casting the sky in hues of orange and pink, I stood at the balcony of the mansion, reflecting on the journey, the pain, the betrayals, the moments of despair, all leading to this moment of contentment. Richard joined me, his presence comforting as always. "You've come a long way, Anna," he said, looking into the horizon. "I have," I replied, "but I couldn't have done it without you." He smiled. "Here's to new beginnings." As we stood there, side by side, it was clear that the future was promising. The past was just that, the past. It was time for new memories, new experiences, and most importantly, new beginnings.